Has been sponsored by the Ubuntu Room. Come join Dana Sardano as she offers life-changing advice that will affect the spiritual, emotional, and physical aspects of your being. Within her easily available writings, you will find the solution you need for your problems. Tune in to the Ubuntu Room on the Brooklyn Cafe Show.
Hi, my name is Dana Sardano, and this is the Ubuntu Room. I am so glad you're here. Thank you for joining me. So, as Dawn said, today we are talking about fear. I shall not live in fear. And I just want to be clear about something. This is not about not having a fear response to things, because fear is it's a natural emotion. It's something to alert us to danger or to some sort of issue. But when we live in fear, that becomes a problem. And I want to share with you a fun fact. So when children are born, when babies are born, their fear response is to two things. They have a startle response, boo, right? You make a noise, they get startled. And a falling response. They're falling and they respond to protect themselves. That is it. That is all. But what happens to us is, as life happens and we get banged around a little bit and we pick up fears along the way, or conditioned fears, or our parents' fears, or the fears that are projected onto us through society's chaos and craziness, we carry them with us and then we apply them to our lives. And that is living in fear. Before we begin this conversation, I want to share one more thing with you that I thought was really cool. I saw this, it was, I guess you'd call it an experiment. I saw this experiment recently, and it had a bunch of babies. They were sitting up and they were able to interact. So we'll say somewhere 9 months to a year old. And they put them in this room, and they put a glass, like the double glass, so their parents could sit in the other room and watch them. So the babies were for sure safe. And they put them in rooms with big snakes. Now, not snakes that could harm them or bite them or squeeze them, but snakes nonetheless. And the babies were interacting with these snakes. They were in wonderment, and they were touching the snakes and holding the snakes, and the snakes were just doing what snakes do, just kind of slithering around. But the parents on the other side of the glass were freaking out because of their fear that they carry, that they've been conditioned to believe that the snakes were dangerous. So it was really an interesting display of what it looks like when our core is in love, babies, right? They're little love blobs. When our core is in love, when we have not yet adopted the fears of the world around us, and we live, versus the conditioned response to be fearful. So that's what this chapter was about. It was about, I shall not live in fear. Rather, I shall recognize that love and all of the emotions and experiences that fall in that camp is where we want to steer when we find ourselves living in fear. So I just kind of condensed that recommendment a little bit, but I love to have a conversation. I could tell that Dawn was taken with the idea that I talked about purpose and faith and the process. And I'm curious what you guys think, especially the fact that we're closing up this recommendment.
On purpose and faith? Well,
all of it.
I thought it was really interesting. You talked, how people always say it all happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And then you go through all the reasons that led up to the reason that it happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned it in this chapter that I remember being in my 20s, hanging out late nights. We don't have to get to the specifics of the circumstances, and talking about the philosophies of life. And in my 20s, grappling with, does everything happen for a reason? Or as human beings, are we able to make reason out of what happened? And I really do believe that things happen because it's a consequence of something else, and a consequence of something else, and a consequence of something else. It's just the nature of how things operate. But as humans, we decipher what purpose and what meaning is from that. So we could have a circumstance here right now, and your purpose, Dawn, that you take from it, and Freddie's purpose, and Wendy's purpose, and Max's, and I'll name everybody's names, and Sophia's, and Heather's, but everybody's meaning they take from it is different based on their perspective. So everything happens for a reason, the reason that we attach to it.
Like if you trip and fall,
Yeah.
happens for a reason other than you
Yeah,
trip.
there's a shoe on the floor.
But other than maybe warm. But then people say, oh, I wasn't supposed to be in the car, so I missed the Uber, or I wasn't supposed to do, I'm late, my stomach hurts, I wasn't in the car at the same time. Maybe it's because I wasn't supposed to be in the car at the same time. Yes or no? Or I just had a stomachache because I ate something funny.
You know, I think that we don't have the answers to this because there are so many things that are at play, forces at play that we don't always understand. So a lot of the reason that we're looking for, you know, we may not find that out until after we're in the ground. Not, not to be blunt about it.
But the end game, okay, it's raining.
Yeah.
Why does it rain? If you ask the reason for the end game, there's a million reasons. Without that,
Yes.
we don't survive, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then there's the journey, why it rains, how it rains, the molecular structure of rain.
Yeah.
But at the end, if you look at it, it rains. That's one deal. Falling, that's another deal. Everything has a story
Sure.
as to why it happens.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that human beings try to relate conditioning, understanding the why.
Yes.
And that's
good.
when we get in trouble.
Yeah, yeah. When we anthropomorphize stuff.
It gets crazy.
Yeah. But back to the rain, it's all cause and effect. The water cycle,
Yeah.
and again, I'm not going to pretend to understand the science, but the water cycle is why it rains, right? But again, we all, because we want to connect and understand, attach our rhyme and reason to it.
That's right. And that's when it gets interesting because then you have an understanding and then you have an understanding to the same subject matter, which is what happened on the morning show today.
But you started with religion.
No. I started with Adam and Eve. And they were talking about Adam and Eve. And the only question I had was there was nobody there to write this down.
The snake.
How do you know? Well, it could have been a lizard for all you know. How do you know that ever happened? How do you know? Because somebody wrote it and say it's scripture that God told him to write it. This is what they say. How do you know? So how do I know? How do I know it's real, not real? I'm not talking about the religious aspects. When you do that, then it gets complicated because human beings complicate everything from love to death. We complicate everything. Nothing is easy. And it shouldn't be, right? Because you're supposed to be dominant figures of this earth, supposedly. But the question was, how do you know?
Yes.
How do you know that Adam and Eve did that? How do you know that the person writing that wasn't drunk that night when he said he saw God? How do you know?
Or
Yeah.
when you get a load of this, 2,000 years from now, they're going to be reading this, believing this to be true. How do you
That's
know?
right. How do you know? I mean, the science of the human mind, there are certain people who understand what the stars do and what the planets do. And there are certain people that understand what humans do. There are actually people that train human characteristic to catch criminals. It's unbelievable. They know what you're going to eat for breakfast before you wake up. It's a spiritual world. I don't know. But the problem we have is that we put too much emphasis when a lot of money is spent to make more money to sell things, to sell ideas, and they take away your thought. The whole world is captured, take away the thought, and follow the idea. And that's the part that bothers me. Because we stop thinking, man.
But
We're not thinking anymore.
But talk about faith.
Okay? Let's talk about
Do you have
faith.
faith that story is true?
I have faith in me. And you know my story. And I've been given a second choice, a second chance. My faith, if you want me to read the Bible, I'll read the Bible. My faith is I believe that me as a person should be nice to every individual individually. That's my story. If you want to throw Jesus and Moses and all that at me, okay, no problem. Those guys, I can never match up to them. But I'm not supposed to
What
be.
did you guys think of the book, Max?
It reiterates what I've learned with my therapist, because we talk about how, like, if I get in a fight with somebody, or it doesn't have to be a bad thing, it's information, you know? If you get in a fight or something uncomfortable happens, like, I don't have to get so bent out of shape about it. It's information on how to adjust accordingly, and
Adjustments.
yeah.
And you're good at it. Because you don't like to fight, you like to defend, right?
Yeah, I don't like to
And that's
fight.
why you get mad when people pick on you.
Yeah, I just sort of flight Flee. Yeah, that's my method.
Fleeing.
Run. Non-confrontation. What do you think, Wendy?
So for me, it depends on the situation. There are times where I'll confront it, you know, a level of fear, and then there's other times where I guess I pick and choose depending on what the situation calls for. Going back to what you're saying about Adam and Eve, I want to throw one little other thing into that. How do we even know that they were Homo sapiens like us?
We don't know.
What if they were Neanderthal?
We don't know.
So, and to your point, it was a human person, or you know, whatever version of human it was that wrote that story. That wasn't God that wrote the info. So I am religious. I am no, maybe spiritual. I would like to say better. I have my upbringings and stuff, and how do I want to say this? So I have my upbringings and stuff, but that doesn't really filter in how I see it. But getting back and going full circle to the whole thing of fear and how we see it and situations coming up and the purpose for the rain, I tend to see the connectivity of why certain things are. But you're right. If I sit there and psychoanalyze it too much or cross-reference it, then I don't move anywhere. So it's just like we all saying here, it's information in a way to best move forward, but it's not something, if it's leaving you paralyzed or you can't move forward based on what your thought is or what that fear is or fill in the blank, it's not serving a purpose.
So fear will stop you, exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Isn't it interesting that if you sit down long enough and you analyze everything from childbirth, but it's a beautiful thing, to getting married and getting divorced after 20 years. Isn't it unbelievable how we could take something beautiful and turn it upside down, including people. You know, there's no reason in the world that you have to run. You shouldn't make anybody feel that way. Back it up a step.
Yeah.
Instead of making people be confrontational because you have to be bigger than the average bear, you should maybe listen. Maybe the person has a good point. It may not be your point, but maybe it is a point.
Yeah.
Chapter, yes?
Yeah. You know, everything that I'll say will always go back to when we are aligned within ourselves, it gets easier. That, you know, to Wendy's point, that it's all information, to all of our points, because everybody's kind of saying the same thing. It's all information, and it's how we receive that information, the faith. When you, and I talk about this here, I realized that when I looked at it again, that I talk about this also in the third book. The next radio show, I wanted to talk about this a little bit because it really comes down to this. We have been taught, many of us, to put our faith outside of us. We put our faith in the politicians. We put our faith in the religious organizations. We put our faith in the medical community, in education. We put all of our faith outside, and then we become disheartened. I think that's the word you were looking for before. Disheartened.
Yes.
Ding ding.
Yes, it was.
But, yeah. But disheartened and disillusioned and disappointed when those who we have faith in, when they fail us. And if we can learn to have faith in ourselves and what we believe about ourselves, and really look within, same thing I say all the time, then we won't look outwardly so much and we won't be so disappointed. And so how do we do that? And that is everything else that's the other 9 recommendments.
Right.
Next week, I wanted to do, I'm just kind of jumping ahead of myself a little bit, but I wanted to do a conclusion. Before I start moving to other things, I really wanted to take the segment next week and process all of them, how they all intertwine with each other, what they mean to each other, because you could take live in fear and not in love and isolate it, but that's not the answer to everything. You could take don't be a victim and isolate it, and that's not everything. But when you take all 10 of these and put them together and realize that each one of them affects our lives in a different way, and together it's the whole, it changes everything. What's that?
It's a fabric.
Yeah.
It's really weaving in that fabric so then it covers your life in a sense.
Yeah.
You know, there's the saying about, I'm sorry,
No, but
rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
We talk about that, and all actuality, yeah, we can live in rose-colored glasses, but I'm all about like X-ray vision. So why not know all the subtext and all of these things so that now you're better equipped to
Yeah.
move forward.
Yeah.
You're more whole, as one would say.
You know, in biblical sense, there's the act of denial. When Peter denied Jesus 3 times, and the rooster allegedly did, that's why the rooster sings today. You know, cock-a-doodle-doo, he does that to remind people of the denial. When people came in, don't you know Jesus, weren't you with him? He said, no, I wasn't. Yes, I saw you, no, I wasn't. And he did it 3 times, it's the denial. And in the Bible, it talks about denial because we seem to run when we're afraid. And you know, it's the best classic example. And here we go again. Who wrote it? Is it true? It's examples of human nature. You know, I mean, I don't want to say that women were born from Adam's rib. I don't like that because it makes me feel like a woman is lower than a man because they came out of a man's body piece. This is why I don't think that my guy would do that.
Exactly.
Really, I could pick other things to make a woman out of, and yet throughout even today,
Because a man probably wrote it.
well, maybe,
Absolutely.
maybe,
Yeah.
and the Bible has allegedly 24 versions missing,
Yep.
which talked about women. Is it true? Not true? All I'm saying is that we don't live at a certain standard. We live through fear as opposed to creativity. We live through fear as opposed to anything else. We're afraid of the rain if it comes too hard. That's what we have learned to become accustomed to.
By design.
By design. And I just want to jump
design.
on the denial. Recommandment 7, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, the story of how the woman was created from the rib of the man. There is that subtext of subservience, right?
Yeah, I see it that way, yeah.
Yeah, and so the beam, and I'm not saying this because I'm a woman, but the feminine energy is the energy of nurturing. It's the energy of intuition and oh my God, just this birthing, right? Right? It's the energy of creation. Let's just call it that. And what happens is the the masculine energy is the energy of doing and action and destroying, really. So, of course, the stories for the masculine energy, for the patriarchy to gain its strength, the stories are always going to be a female subservience because the female is to be feared and is dangerous to the male, to the masculine energy, because she is the creator. So this is all, Wendy, right? We're all nods. This is all by
1,000,000%.
design to keep the powerful creative energy at bay and in fear. But that's changing. Tell us about it.
Absolutely. So we are the original portals.
Yes.
Nobody could be here if we didn't birth it. I mean, we need actually both. I mean, let's
Yeah,
not have a
you need-
science
yeah.
lesson. But the whole thing is that how's a man by himself going to have a child? How can a woman? But we are the original portal.
Well, that's what scares a man, is that he
Absolutely.
can't give birth. And how long have I been saying that?
I thought you were crazy the first
10
time
years.
you told me that. I
10
said,
years I've
"What?"
been saying that.
You know, that's
Yeah.
funny that you say that because
funny
my
you say
son is on the spectrum. He is going to be 22 this year. But that child, I call him a child and he's a man, but he's so wise. And one day he said to me, "Mom, I'm upset." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I'll never be able to have a baby. Men don't have babies." And I
He's
said, "And you
100%
find
right.
that sad?" He's like, "Yeah." There was a level of him, oh my gosh, I must have been at this point maybe 8 years ago when he said that, and it took me aback. I'm like, here it is. You know, the comprehension that he'll never understand what it is to have a human life originate from him in that way.
I said that we were at iHeart, and I said it. And since I've known Dawn, I said men always find women intimidating because they can't give birth. It's the one thing that, you know how a man says this is superior and all this, and you look at certain countries where women have absolutely no rights, even to
Yeah,
today.
absolutely.
Makes no sense to me.
It's
1,000%.
because they're feared, so you have to control them, control
Absolutely.
their bodies, and control them. And just to just add another layer to it, you know, we're talking about the creative force of giving birth, but the act of creation, we are all, every single one of us, man and women, we are all creators of our reality. So if you cut off the most prominent creative source and make them feel less than, then there's going to be another, like a layer of, like I just saw like you know what I mean?
Yep,
Like a mushroom,
like a
an expl-
Hiroshima.
Another, yeah. Thank you. Like another wave going out of, okay, the ultimate creative force is not creating. So creativity in all of its forms, either the creating of your experience to the creating of art and music to anything creative is frowned upon. What's not frowned upon is, the act of making money, the act of control, the act of competition, the act
My
of
team
war.
against your team.
All of these heavily masculine energy, imbalanced masculine energy, right? Toxic masculine energy. That is what is in power right now to keep it. Because if we all knew, men, women, children, all of us, if we truly understood the power of our creativity from thoughts to beliefs to action to the worlds that we create, then all of those with that heavy, imbalanced, toxic masculine energy, the patriarchy, if you will, would have nothing. So from day one, keeping the women down was the only way to keep the people under control.
1000%.
That's it. That's all.
It's funny because you introduced me to the world of the interns, and the way I saw it, the way it is for these young minds and these young kids. And my son brought it up to me, Dad, I went on a job interview and they said I was too young. And I said, well, did they ask you anything about what you do, the creative mind? And he said, no, they just looked at my age. And that's another blemish. Give kids a chance. Give everybody a chance. I got kids on the spectrum in here. I'm going to tell you, I'll put them up against anybody. That's your word, not my word. Yeah. I don't use the word spectrum. To me, they're normal. Matter of fact, they may be the normal ones, and we are not the normal ones.
Amen.
Because they see things that we can never hear.
1000%.
I mean, that's really the bottom line. Call it what it is. We went to the moon because 5 black women got together and figured it out. I don't want to hear the nonsense. My sister, may she be watching, and Mimi, ever since I was a kid, she told me, you look at me as a person before you look at me as your sister. And you go through life with that message. And that's the thing that you taught me again. Because I said no to the internship. I was the one to say absolutely not. Because I didn't think you could take the work that it takes. And I am amazed at the amount. But now it's mushrooming to this. Maybe this is the way to get the message out there. Give somebody a chance.
This is the way.
Give them a break before you condemn them. You'll be surprised, man.
Yeah. But just the way the world is now, although it's crumbling, we're watching it and we're rejoicing, but the way some of us are rejoicing, I'm like white knuckling it, but that's falling apart and people are starting. Couple people, special people like yourself are coming in, like you, oh my God, everybody in this room are coming up and saying, let's look at it a little bit differently.
Stepping up.
Stepping up. Let's look at it a little bit differently and giving people an opportunity to shine that would not have had that opportunity before. Women, people that see the world a little bit differently. I think we're all on the spectrum. There's a different spectrum of how we see the world. You know what I mean? We just have attached meaning to these words. Right? Ooh, spectrum. Remember, I don't get blonde jokes.
But we were taught at such a young age, doesn't matter what religion you are, is to believe in outside forces. To do, right? Which is why in Judaism we don't pray to idols and all of those things. And then you realize religion, whatever religion you were taught as a child. And that's what you hold on to until, at least for me, I guess working with you, it was not religion, it was spirituality. That I do believe in something higher. But I can't tell you that I know who wrote Genesis and who wrote Adam and Eve. And there's so many things to take religion out. But those are the confines that you're taught, and which is good. You're taught as children, you're taught structure, which I think is valid and really, really important. But you also have to, at some point, dig deep and say, does this resonate with me? Does it not resonate with me? Do I believe in myself? Is there more faith and spirituality over who wrote Adam and Eve? But doesn't mean you forget your religion. But I think there can be both. It's like holistic medicine and allopathic medicine. You've got diabetes, lower your sugar, but maybe you're going to take that extra CoQ10 because you know it's going to be really important.
Complementary.
You can have both.
Exactly.
Well, you can't.
It's the balance, and there's a balance between faith and fear.
Well, you can't expect to believe a book this thick, written by whoever. You can't expect people to buy into this if you don't have faith. If you take the book out of the way and you have faith, then the book becomes easier to understand.
But I think kids now are learning faith. They're learning spirituality. They're learning yoga. They're learning breath work. They're learning intuition. They're taking time because kids on the spectrum, there's so many more kids that have been identified, whether that's good or bad, whatever. They're looking into other things. When we were little, there was no breath work. If you went to
Was
PE,
one
you could
way
do
or the
pull-ups,
highway?
great. If you were uncoordinated like me,
You failed.
and you weren't picked for the kickball team,
I
you
failed.
failed, right? It wasn't like, oh, let's do yoga today. If you went to swimming class, it was like, I can't. It's my time of the month. Whatever. If you were doing yoga or breath work, you could do it at any time. We actually, so the kids now were really learning great skills.
Yeah.
However that came to be, it's an amazing opportunity for them to learn faith within themselves.
Faith within themselves, faith of themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm of the belief that we, you know, of course, I believe that there is a greater power, but we are all an extension of that power. I've done my whole, you know, you blow the air into the glove, and, you know, but we are all an extension of that. So if we are all an extension, we're all God's children, but that was for you. If we're all an extension of that divinity, then wouldn't that make us divine? And if we are divine, why wouldn't we act as such? Why wouldn't we treat ourselves with the same reverence that we would go to a church or a temple or a mosque and pray to? And I'm not suggesting that we pray to ourselves, but we could treat ourselves with a little bit more reverence,
Right.
a little bit more care, a little bit more grace, a little bit more respect, a little bit more love. And when we do that, and we are the consequence, we're living consequence of treating ourselves with care and respect and love and all of those things, then we bring that to the world. And that's the whole concept of Ubuntu. First, your mask, oh, I'm going to take good care of myself, and now I have it to give. And if each of us do that, then we're not trying to control each other, and we're not trying to tear each other down. If anything, we're building each other up, and that's the name of the game moving forward.
Yep. And there is a little bit of fear. You need to teach your kids, do not run and cross the street without looking, right? Do not put your finger in a light socket. There are things.
That's pain. That's not fear.
Well, you need
there are things that we
fear
do
of the
need.
consequence.
There are
Right.
people that like running into buses. I can tell you, I know people who want to
I
be
saw
actors.
somebody run into a
As
bus.
They love running
an
into
adult, as
buses.
an adult, that's your choice. As a child, they need to learn boundaries.
But pain is not fear. Fear is pain.
Well, I tell you what, I had my parents once tell me, don't plug in that lamp. There's a short circuit. And guess who plugged in the lamp?
Well, of course.
And
'Cause they
there
tell you
wasn't
don't.
pain, but I got sure as heck was shocked.
Yeah. But I hear what you're saying, Dawn. You're absolutely right. That's the healthy fear, and that's what I was saying going
talked about that,
to this
yeah.
whole segment. You know, to the fear again. Everything is information. So our emotional guidance is to tell us. Fear tells us, "Ooh, that's dangerous." Joy tells us, "Ooh, that might be good for us." And we use this emotional guidance to help us navigate this information. But when you adopt the fear as a part of you and you live in it, then and it's irrational because it's something that happened 20 years ago or something somebody programmed you to believe, that's when we have issues. That's where
Well,
there's dysfunction.
if you're going to talk in front of 100,000 people,
yeah.
or you're going to play basketball in front of millions of
Yeah.
people,
I'm more likely to talk than play basketball.
but
go on.
either or be a commentator on a game.
Yeah.
More the player than the commentator. You got to learn how to handle that fear, because that fear will just stop you. And anxiety, sometimes it takes a quarter to get over that fear.
Yeah.
If you coach children who are 6 and 7 years old in a championship game, and you look at them, they don't understand fear.
No.
They understand, let's go get them. It's a big difference.
Yeah.
As you get older,
Yeah.
you begin to say, boy, I got to talk in front of 100,000 people. I got to go out on that stage.
Learn.
And then I got to go do what I do. You start shaking. I've seen people shake.
Yeah.
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 And I laugh because I sit down, I read a paper, I have a cup of coffee, and people are saying, is this guy normal?
No, the answer is always no.
No.
Because fear, they're living through fear. I'm looking at it as an opportunity. Now I'm going to go up there and just do what I do, like I've always done. But I'm going to be watching tonight. You can tell players' fear from being excited. And the ones with the fear are the ones that are going to have a hard time. And that's going to be the difference in this game. There are a lot of people watching. You tie your shoes, people watching. You pick your nose, people watching.
Uh-oh.
You miss a shot and blow the game, people remember.
That's the fear.
There's the fear.
That's the fear. The fear is of the potential consequence, whereas a kid's just throwing the ball to throw it.
There
There's
it
no
is.
fear.
That's right.
All right, how do people find you and get ready for next week?
Okay, so you can find me on UbuntuFishGallery.com, UBUNTU, fishgallery.com. And next week, we are going to do the full recap. We're going to make sense of it. We're going to enmesh each of the recommendments with one another so you could apply it to your life as a whole. And I look forward to seeing you there.
All right, we're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, Intern Corner, spotlight on